All right, everybody. Welcome to the Bear Archery Podcast. I am joined today by a new friend of mine, Mr. Scotty, aka BowTok. I'm new to TikTok. I've never been on it before. Honestly, thought it was for a bunch of 12-year-old girls. But then after talking with several friends in the industry, I find out that it's really good for hunting. And so I joined TikTok, and the first video I posted, a lot of people started tagging Mr. Scotty, aka BowTok, and he's very active on TikTok. Puts out a lot of really good information, and so we talk about just kind of the necessary evil that is social media, how to make a real, true impact on social media, how to be a difference maker. But also some of the dangers of social media. We also just kind of dive into some of our favorite mid-level bows from Bear. He's a shop owner down in Georgia, carries a lot of Bear bows, and is very familiar with them. We talk about a couple other products that are new to the industry and just get his first initial thoughts on them. Guys, it's a really fun episode. I hope you enjoy it. As always, this episode is brought to you by our good friends over at ScentLock. But let's dive in and talk with Mr. Scotty.
With over 90 years of innovation, Bear Archery continues pushing toward the goal of founder Fred Bear, making archery accessible for all. Fred believed the history of the bow and arrow were the history of mankind, and everyone should immerse themselves in the outdoor experience. Welcome to the Bear Archery Podcast, where the mission is simple: to hunt, grow, and inspire others.
Guys, I'm a big believer in prioritizing your feet. Your feet should always be a priority, and you should always be considering what's on your feet. If you're in the mountains and you've got blisters and hot spots, you are not going to go as far. You're not going to make it to that next ridge. You're not going to stay on the mountain as long. Ultimately, you're not going to be as successful. If you're sitting in a whitetail stand and your feet are freezing, you're going to get more jittery. You're not going to be as still. You're not going to be as quiet. You're not going to stay as long. Ultimately, you're not going to be able to kill that big buck in the dead of winter. If you're chasing antelope, you've got to be able to be quick and quiet and fast and have comfortable feet. Guys, no matter what you're chasing, no matter the pursuit, no matter the game, your feet should be a priority. I have fallen in love with Schnee boots. I didn't even know how normal hot spots and blisters were in my life until I got a good pair of boots, because I was probably a lot like you. I would run to a Cabela's Bass Pro, and I would buy a pair of $100 boots thinking that I was saving money. But those boots break down faster, and I got to keep buying boots. So guys, don't let a pair of $400 boots keep you from buying good boots, because in the long run, those $100 boots, they add up. Whereas if you spend good money on a good pair of Italian-made, handcrafted boot, they're going to last you for 10, 15 years. They're going to be way more comfortable. You're going to be more successful. Your feet will be more comfortable. You will thank me later. So guys, go check out schnees.com for all of your boots. That's SCHNEES.com. The best boots on planet Earth, Schnee boots. Go check them out. Thank me later. But guys, start prioritizing your feet and get yourself a good pair of boots. All right, Scotty. So, little backstory, and I already shared this with you, but I am brand new to TikTok. Shout out to all my TikTok people out there. I fought it for a long time, but finally, after like 4 people telling me, I was like, fine, I'll try it.
Yeah.
And I posted a video, and like 19 people tagged you in it. And I'm like, who is this cat? And so I go to the old BowTok, and I'm like, so I just did a deep dive in your media. I'm like, man, I gotta get him on the show. And so very few times do I message somebody and then that night we're podcasting. But here we are, dude. So I appreciate you making it possible.
Yeah, man, I try to work fast. We got a tight, loose schedule of what I tell people. I mean, some days you might not get me for a week or a month, and sometimes it's like, hey, what are you doing right now?
Yeah, no kidding, man. So before we get into the whole social media aspect of things, how'd you get into a bow shop, dude? Like, give me that backstory.
Yeah, so me and my family started out years ago. So we established the company's LLC in 2015. And I've said this on one other podcast before, but a lot of people don't know this. But before there was BowTok, there was, I guess, Duck Talk. My first love getting into the outdoor industry was actually making duck calls, mallard calls, a few woodies here and there. and hand turned on a lathe, made my own inserts, stuff like that. Turned acrylic, cocobolo, all kinds of woods and that good jazz. But then started going on the road to all the big hunting expos that a lot of people know, especially in the Southeast. World Deer Expo, Great American Outdoor Show in Pennsylvania, the Buckmasters in Texas. I mean, we were usually on the road about 6 months out of the year, but that's how we started, was selling hand turned duck calls, and also we sold True Timber camouflage apparel at that time because we didn't have a brick and mortar retail store. So obviously your bigger name brands wouldn't sell to us because we were literally working out of a 12-foot enclosed trailer. And I forgot. Let's see, we've been at that location for about going on 9 years now. So roughly about 9 years ago, we saw kind of a decline at the time in the hunting expos as far as the dollar amount of people wanting to buy stuff. I don't know what it's like now. I've heard it's gotten a little better, but I mean, the last couple shows I did, they were a great place to buy a phone case and some steak seasoning, and that was about it. And that's not a hunting expo. I mean, that's a flea market. And so we just took a risk, and we're actually in an outlet mall called Tanger Outlet Center, which a lot of people think is kind of a crazy spot for a hunting store, which it is. But if you think about it, that's where all the women want to shop. Well, if we're the only guys store there, guess where they're going to hang out while all the girls are over at Lululemon?
There you go. You've got to figure it out.
Well, it was a bunch of trial and error and accidents, and maybe this will work. And hey, this does work. And we just figuring out there's no manual or script to this. I've come to the conclusion there's only two people that really get into owning an outdoor store. It's really wealthy people that need a tax write-off, and people that has a whole lot of money and got nothing better to do. It's hard to make a living doing it, and that's why we work so many hours and so many days. We're closed 3 days out of the year. That's it. We probably work longer hours than, I'm not going to say any shop, but most shop in America, as far as 7 days a week, about 10 to 11 hours a day, depending on if it's Sunday or not.
Now, where are you actually located at? Like what town?
Northeast Georgia. It's in Commerce. We're about 60 miles north of Atlanta, almost to South Carolina.
Very cool. Now, what's the name of your shop for those that don't know?
Sorry, I give me a swaller. It's called Feathers and Antlers Outdoors. We got a website. We got an Instagram, obviously TikTok, Facebook. It cracks me up the amount of DMs I get across all platforms. Where are you located? I'm not hiding. It's easy. The address is there. The phone number is there. Come see us. It's a real store. We're real people. You'd be surprised at how many times people come in that shop and they're like, you actually work it. I guess some people think I'm like PJ Riley and just do the media and never work behind the counter. No offense to PJ, because I'm assuming that's kind of how he operates. But you'll see us back. You'll see me and my buddies back there, my family working on bows. My dad's selling camo and fishing and stuff like that. And mama's probably on a computer somewhere.
Very cool, man. Now it seems like just based off of TikTok and watching videos, it seems like it's a very big store. I mean, seems like for a bow shop, it's a good size.
So you gotta determine the difference between a southeastern shop and a northwest shop. Because in the South, bow hunting is not nearly as popular as it is in the Northwest, because we have longer rifle seasons. So as far as a shop in my general area in the Southeast, I would consider it a decent sized shop. Yes, we're about 3,500 square foot total. Now that's not just the bow count. We have a 60-foot bow counter, which is a lot bigger than most. But that's the whole shop at about 3,800 square foot total. Now versus a shop out in, Illinois or Pennsylvania or a place like that, where they only get 5 days to boomstick hunt. I mean, that's pretty much all those people know is a bow. So those shops are a lot bigger and a lot more inventory.
Yeah. Now, it seems like you came into a bow shop at a really interesting time. So I was getting out of the bow shop game about 12 years ago. And that was really when you saw that big just shift of everybody buying bows online and bow shops struggling. A lot of people made it to where you could order bows online, and a lot of people, and then you take that even in the last 5-6 years, there's been a massive switch that seems to be flipped where people want to work at home on their archery equipment. They want to buy a press, they want to buy saws, they want to buy a draw board, and they want to do all the work at home. So what have you seen change in the bow shop game since you've started it?
Since I've started, okay, that's kind of a tough question. So since I've started with social media and been relatively successful with it, what I've seen change as far as what comes across my emails and people driving very long distances to my shop, I've seen it where people are making these drives, people are wanting to buy stuff online because we take the time. And that's what and I'm by no way, shape, or form trying to knock other shops, but the amount of emails I get either from the shops not being open, like regular business hours, which I mean it's free country, do what you want. But really, it honestly just comes down to the customer service. I mean, I've got, and this isn't me being arrogant, but I've got customers that drive from your state, Mississippi, from Pennsylvania, from Michigan. I mean, they literally make a trip out of it to come spend a day, day and a half getting what they need done or buying stuff, rent a hotel room. And that's really, I think, what it comes down to. And more people are comfortable buying bows online that are able to be shipped. For anybody that's listening, not all bows and bow brands can be bought online. You can look at them, but you can't touch them. You have to go to a local pro shop to buy a lot of them. But there are certain brands that allow shops like mine to do a whole build for somebody and send it to them. And a lot of times what I'll do, depending on how busy we are, because, obviously a lot of the fun for a customer buying a bow is watching it be built. So I don't know if you've seen or not, I do TikTok live a lot. And a lot of times I'll go live, as long as the shop floor is relatively calm, and build that bow out for that customer. And they absolutely love it. They're like, man, I can't wait to get that. So I think a lot of it's just coming down to people want to buy stuff, but they also want to be educated. And they also, want to feel like, you're earning their business.
Yeah. First off, I don't know where you got that idea, but I'm incredibly offended that you think I'd be from Mississippi. I'm in Kansas. Born and raised in Arkansas, straight Razorback through and through. So I've not found many people from Mississippi I like.
I'm trying to think.
I'm just kidding.
Who was on the phone with? I thought, oh, my bad.
Not me, bro. Not me. Again, people from Mississippi, if you're listening,
hey,
never
Lex,
mind.
I got
I'm going to
really
dodge a bullet.
big friend in Mississippi.
I'm going to dodge a bullet here. No, I'm just kidding. All right. So you've mentioned it. You've mentioned the role that social media plays. And I've had this conversation several times with several different people on the podcast, but social media is a necessary evil. And listen, guys, I work in marketing for a living. Like, I know that you have to have social media. It doesn't mean I enjoy it. A lot of bad comes from social media, but also a lot of good comes from social media. So what role have you seen? What impact have you seen social media make, not only on your shop, but on hunting, on bow hunting, on the acceptance of hunting, on the idea of hunting? What all kind of impacts have you seen that make?
It gives people that aren't bought and paid for a voice, and what that allows is an honest opinion to somebody who's new into the sport versus somebody who's been in the sport their whole life, made a career out of it, is only allowed to talk about XYZ brand. And that is where YouTube, TikTok, Instagram Reels, all that has just absolutely flourished in the outdoor industry, because it gives guys like me a voice to be like, hey, this is a really cool product. Let me explain to you why. And during any of my reviews, any of my videos, very rarely do I say you need to buy this. But if I do, you should probably buy it. I always say, let me know what you think in the comment section. Get your own opinion. I want people to get their own opinion about products. Now, for example, the saddle I did a review on yesterday, that video hit 100,000 K, and everybody took my word for it and bought that saddle. We were sold out of the Grit from Tethered. Golly. Everybody went crazy over that saddle, and they should. A $300 saddle that comes almost with everything they need. I mean, it's just crazy. It's always funny to me to watch the online sales right after I post a video to see how people are reacting.
Well, first off, you shouldn't buy a saddle because it's a saddle. A tree diaper is what I call them.
Mm-hmm.
Honestly, I don't mind the idea of saddle hunting at all. But I made that comment one time, tree diaper, and everybody just lost their freaking minds. And so I'm like, yeah, I'm gonna stick with it now.
I would 100%.
No, and I've said it before. I struggle with it, dude, because across Kansas, Oklahoma, Missouri, and Arkansas, I've got 17 leases and approximately like 43 tree stands hung up, give or take. I mean, if I take some down, move them, don't put them back up, 43 tree stands. And I'm like, I hate the idea of buying one saddle and it replacing all of those tree stands that have taken me hours to hang, hours to cut limbs and set these spots up. So I see the value in it. And if I was just now getting into hunting, I would 100% buy a saddle over having to buy 43 tree stands. 100%.
Especially if you're mainly bow hunting.
Yeah. Oh yeah. 100%. I'm just so far into the tree stand game where it's like, crap, dude, I don't want to have to redo all this or undo all the work that I've already put in. So why not just, use what I've already got? So, but I'm still going to make the comments because it gets people triggered. And that's why I say it's an unnecessary evil, because I think a lot of good comes from social media. You see a lot of people are exposed to the idea of hunting that would never be exposed to it unless they saw it on social media.
Mm-hmm.
But you also get that whole, and again, I'm brand new to TikTok, so I don't know how it is on TikTok, but on Instagram, you get the whole idea of buck shaming and let him grow another year. And I despise that, because I'm like, well, first off, like, you don't know where that kid's at. Like, this might be the first time this kid's ever bow hunted, shoots a fork and horn, and then you got keyboard warrior saying, why didn't you let him grow? Well, it's the guy's first time ever bow hunting.
Yep.
Chill a little bit. Like, and so that's kind of where I get upset, because again, you see a lot of good come from social media. A lot of people are exposed to the idea of hunting. But hey, also a lot of people are exposed to the bad sides of hunting.
100%. I've made quite a few posts talking about young men and young women being out in a tree stand, hunting with a rifle. Maybe their camo doesn't match. Maybe their vinyl harness is a little twisted. Something's wrong. Something's not perfect. And they just get nailed in the comment section, like you said. And I've said it many a times. I'd much rather see a young man out there doing it wrong in the outdoors versus under a bridge smoking a bowl. And I'd much rather see a young girl out there doing it wrong in the outdoors rather doing it right on the hole. You'll have to excuse my dog real quick. He's slurping up half my well water right now.
No, you're fine, man. Most of the best podcast guests you have loud dogs. Mm-hmm. And that's where I think that we as a community, as a hunting community, we need to be careful of two things. We need to be careful that we represent ourselves in a respectful manner. In other words, don't clean up your photos. And that sounds like, when I first got into the industry, I remember I shot a nice, 140. And I sent it to some people, and I thought I took really good pictures, really high quality pictures, I should say. And one of the companies that I sent it to said, well, we can't post this. I'm like, why not? And they said there's blood coming out of the mouth and the tongue's hanging out. I'm like, yeah, it's dead. Like, I killed it. Like, that's what happens.
That's part
and they're like, yeah, but we need clean photos that represent the animal well. And I was like, dude, whatever. Like, and I remember being like a little bit offended. But now that I've been in the industry long enough, and especially with my role in Pope and Young, the ones that fight to preserve our rights as bow hunters, I see the importance of representing yourself in a classy way. I see the importance of cleaning up the photos, because if that's the only picture that said person might ever see, you want it to be classy. You want it to be honoring the animal. I'm glad the whole fad of like acting like you're riding the deer is gone, because that was just made me sick. So A, we need to be respectful and classy and show respect to the animal. But B, we also need to stand together as a community. And what I mean by that is not putting each other down because of what they shoot, how they shoot it, why they shoot it, because they're a trigger puncher, because they shoot a thumb button and not a hinge, because they shoot a bear and not a Hoyt.
Just shut up. That's what I tell those people. Just shut up. Just shut 100%. Your mouth. Is this all you got to do to talk down on somebody who's who's just trying to figure it out.
Yeah.
I mean, could you imagine if I said that to every one of my customers that I took in the back to paper tune?
Right.
I mean, you're doing it wrong. You're doing it wrong. You're doing it wrong. Which a lot of times they are, but as long as they do it wrong every time and they're consistent, who cares? They're having fun.
Yeah.
I mean, you never heard somebody say, no, that's not how you go down that slide. Who cares? They're having fun.
Yeah. And that's why, to your point, I get that question a lot, especially with recurves, because I pride myself in tuning my recurves. And I get that question a lot of like, well, what's your advice for tuning a recurve? And I'm like, if you're just starting, don't. Like, just shoot it and learn the basic mechanics. And as you develop the mechanics, then go into tuning. Because if you can't, execute a shot, you're going to just make yourself miserable.
Compound. Same
Yeah.
thing. Set your center shot. Make sure your D loop's level. Don't worry about paper tuning just yet, because I promise you it ain't going to matter, because you're going to change your form, because you're going to figure out it's wrong later on down the road, and then you're just going to have to re-paper tune again. Make sure you got the correct length, spine, arrows. Get you 12 of them, because you're going to lose at least 5, and you'll find them in the springtime with the lawnmower, and you won't be able to reuse them. So just get out there, shoot, and have fun. That needs to go on a T-shirt. Shoot and have fun, and shut up.
I also think that I think vice versa. And I said this on a couple podcasts ago too. I was talking with my buddy who runs a gun shop, and he just got banned from Facebook because he's a gun shop. And, I made the statement that as a hunting page, as somebody who kills stuff for fun, you're never going to grow organically. Like social media, Instagram does not want to show your dead deer to more people than it has to. So where other people can be discovered and their media will pop up to other people, you're never going to get that. So on the contrary, like even if you just like and comment a thumbs up, those people need help to be seen and to grow. And so I encourage everybody, like, dude, I don't care if you actually like the way they shoot or not. I don't care if you like the equipment they shoot or not. Just comment and say good shooting and give it a like, I mean, just help that person along.
Because even though they're not shooting the brand bow you shoot, they're helping grow the sport.
Exactly. Yep. And that's what, as outdoorsmen, that should be our goal for everything, to see our sport thrive and succeed. But unfortunately, we're a little bit selfish and we only like what's in it for us. Well, I got news for you folks. If we don't stand together, it's not going to be what's in it for us, because it won't exist anymore.
Mm-hmm. That's one of the reasons why I actually went out and spent a little bit of money on this camera, is for YouTube, because YouTube's one of the platforms you can actually show, almost everything to an extent, from what I've researched and from what other content creator friends of mine have told me, who actually have a good following on YouTube. And, obviously it's a place you want to show your hunts and stuff like that. But that's something I'm going to start doing this fall. I've already started doing like reviews and stuff like that on there. And it's popped up a little bit. It's just so hard going from, it's hard starting on a new platform with a whole new algorithm that you're not familiar with.
Yeah.
And, starting off slow, but it's getting there.
I will say that's my problem with TikTok. Like, I've already had 2 videos deleted. One was my son, quote unquote, turkey hunting with a BB gun. And I'm like, the kid's walking through the woods acting like he's turkey hunting. Like, there's nothing, like, I never showed a bird, because I have a 4-year-old trying to chase a bird. You're not going to see a bird. And he doesn't have a stinking AR. He's got a BB gun, a Red Ryder BB gun, and he's walking through the woods, and it got deleted. And I was like, you got to be.
All the algorithm cared about was that it had a butt stock on it, because I've had the same thing happen with a crossbow on TikTok. Yep. So, and not so much as uploading video. Well, no, actually it happened twice on live. One time when I was actually restringing a crossbow, I had it in a vise with the butt stock sticking up. You see it clear as day, like a little white flag. And I was working on the crossbow, went to look at the camera to talk to some of the people in the live, boom, black screen. Like, what? And then it allowed me to appeal it and not get banned off of live for X amount of days or months or whatever. But ever since then, and one other time I was in a blind, and one of my buddies I was with, he had a crossbow, and I just barely panned it to where you could see the butt stock, and boy, they get you quick too. I'm talking 5 seconds. You gone. and I was able
Really?
to appeal that as well.
See, that's the only part I don't like about social media. Not the only part. I've already mentioned I don't like a lot of it,
Yeah.
but that's what is hard as somebody who, because again, I mean, I've got to handle all the posting for Pope and Young, and it's all dead animals. I mean, and we've had world record posts get removed, and I'm like, are you serious? Like, come on. I hate the whole like treading lightly deal. Like, I hate the whole, can I post this? Can I not? Like, I'm trying to post a 4-year-old with a BB gun and I get banned. Like, man, come on. Like,
Yeah.
and then I post a picture. I post a video of me and my son. He was with me last year when I killed a deer. And I just posted a video of us like celebrating and just, I just asked him like, what just happened, buddy? And he said, we just killed a buck. And we were in a ground blind. So we're still whispering. We walk out of the ground blind and like start celebrating. And I pan to the deer. You see it in the field and it took that one down too. I'm like, come on, man. I didn't even show a gun or show anything dying.
You gotta watch it, and that's something that I assume what I'm about to say is correct, but once you get flagged a couple times, you're kind of on the radar. If
Yeah,
I'm
I would
just
agree with that.
assuming, but I mean, I learned early on with TikTok, like way before I started really diving into it, that you can't. I mean, I had some dead ducks on a lanyard one time. I got taken down. Community guidelines. So now, I mean, but that's fine and all, because TikTok allows freedoms that other social media doesn't, and vice versa, so to
Yeah.
speak. Um, I will say that the one thing I do like about TikTok is the way the algorithm works, and it actually gives you an opportunity to keep getting views, to keep if people are sharing, if it's being generic and people are sharing your posts and stuff, that means that TikTok's going to keep putting it in front of people.
Yeah.
And not just from the shares, but it's going to do its part. And that's what a lot of people struggle with is, trying to, come up with catchy stuff to keep people interested, to basically, keep the algorithm going.
Yeah. So enough about TikTok. What you got any cool hunts planned this fall, man, or you pretty much hunt around Georgia?
So I do have a farm here. I hunt a good bit. I don't know how much I'm gonna hunt here this year because it ain't looking promising. But I did get drawn for Kansas.
Really?
Not that that's overly hard from what I've heard. I'm actually going with that really big guy from Mississippi I was telling you about. His name is Zach Rushing. He's a comedian buddy of mine. Me and him we're gonna go up there, and we got a little outfit we're gonna go with. And well, I tell you what, judging from the trail cam pictures, they grow them different out there. Lord have mercy.
Where are you headed to?
I think, like I said, I think it was northeast where we're going. One of the buddy bars up there runs a little outfit. Man, the trail cam pictures, he let me log in and look at the trail cam pictures, and my God, I knew it was gonna be good when he told me. He's like, yeah, we don't want nothing shot under 150. I'm like, well, how many you got over 150? And then I started getting the pictures. I'm like, whoo, he got some options. Lord.
Man, it's a different ball game for sure. Like I said, I grew up in Arkansas, hunting ducks and small deer. And I remember the first time I ever came to Kansas, I started dating this gal from Kansas, and that she's ultimately what moved me here. But came to Kansas, and I had a buddy. He's like, yeah, let's go sit in a tree stand. I'm like, cool. And this deer comes out, and I go to get my bow off the hook, and he's like, what are you doing, dude? You can't shoot that deer. And I'm like, the heck I can. Like, what do you mean I can't shoot this deer? And he was like, dude, that's like a 2.5-year-old deer. I'm like, dude, that's like a 140-inch deer. I've never seen anything like this in my life. And I was like, dude, I grew up in Arkansas. Like a 120 is big. And he was like, yeah, but that's a 2.5-year-old deer. I'm like, dude, that deer weighs 200 pounds. Like, I'm shooting this deer, and we're sitting there fighting in the tree stand. And but yeah, I learned my lesson pretty quick. It's a different ball game, man. And it's made it to where, like, hunting in Texas, like, I love hunting in Texas, always have. But when you go from Kansas to Texas, it becomes difficult to judge animals because the body size is so much smaller. It makes the racks look so big. So you're like, okay, am I misjudging the rack size or am I misjudging the body size? But yeah, man, it's a different ball game, but it sure is a lot of fun. I'm excited you're going to get to come, dude.
The same thing happened to me when I went to Kentucky for the first time. Went with an old boy first morning. he was filming for me, bless his heart. And keep in mind, up to this point, only place I ever deer hunted was my home state of Georgia, where if you see a 130, you might be in GON, Outdoor News. First morning we were out there, and I kind of like you, about a 135, 142 comes strutting by, and I'm grabbing my bow. And he's like, dude, you got one tag. That's not what you're here for. I said, I know, but the Georgia boy's coming out in me. He's got bones on his head and needs to die. And ended up shooting a doe, and that was really about it later on during that hunt. And then a few weeks later, he texted me. He goes, somebody else shot that deer. I'm like, dadgummit, old son.
I should have been the one.
Yeah, I should have been the one.
No kidding, dude. No, I'm excited, man. I've actually got a good friend in Georgia, and been trying to get down there to hunt. I just love hunting new stuff. I love hunting not only different terrain and different like just atmospheres, but also different deer. I mean, they respond completely different. Like deer don't act the same in Kansas.
You would hate
do what?
You would hate our deer. Our deer are aggravating.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're like your ex-old lady. You ain't gonna want to come back. Yeah. You bust some antlers together. Every deer in the county just left. I didn't want no part of that.
See, that's exactly how it was growing up in Arkansas, and it was such a hard switch for me. Like growing up, dude, you didn't touch antlers, you didn't grunt, like none of that. And I was taught sit down, shut up, be quiet, don't move. And then you get to Kansas, and like people are banging horns together. I mean, banging horns, making all sorts of ruckus with grunt calls, and I'm like, what are you doing, dude? Every deer in the county's gone, and here they come. It's just a different, and that's why I like it. That's why I like going to different areas and trying different stuff. Some places you go and decoys suck, but then other places decoys are incredible. I mean, I just love that, dude. I love the trying to figure out deer in a different area.
And that's what one of my buddies told me, who's been up to Kansas a bunch. He said, don't be scared to bump them antlers together. He said, take them with you. He said, they respond. And if there's a hot doe in the area, he's coming. I'm like, it's going to be fun.
The last 3 years in Kansas, I've rattled in every deer I've shot, like clockwork. And it was a really cool story. Last year, so the deer that's on the wall right over here, my son again was with me in the ground blind, and honestly, dude, I did not expect to see deer. I went on not a great evening, which is why I took him.
Good father.
And I set far away. Like I knew where the deer are going to be. I set far down in a draw just so we could see a lot of deer, but not, bust a lot of deer up. And this deer steps out. Well, here, I'll grab him real quick. And so this deer steps out up on top of the ridge. And he's by no means like crazy cool and big. But this deer steps out, and my son says, Dad, can we try to kill that deer? I'm like, my son's 5. I'm like, yeah, dude, let's do it. And he's actually an old deer. One that needed to be taken off the property anyways. And so, but anyways, he's 400 yards away up on top of that ridge where I knew they'd be. And so I just hit the rattles, and I did have a decoy out. I'm like, well, if we see deer and I've got a decoy, it'll be exciting for him to watch. And so I hit the rattle and horns together, and from 400 yards, he turns, looks right at that decoy, and comes down the field. And my son's freaking out the whole time. And of course, we're in a ground blind. Like people think when I tell this story, we're in some big box blind enclosed with windows. No, we're in a ground blind. And so I'm literally like, son, don't move. Like he would look past the decoy at us. I'm like, don't move. Like, please don't move. And, my son, like literally this deer's coming like 400, 300, 200. It gets to 200, and he's like, hey, we got any more chocolate bars? I'm like, dude, there's a deer right here coming to us right now. Like, what are you talking about, chocolate bars? And sure enough, man, he come to 23 yards, and that was the deer that got my first flag on TikTok because I posted me and my son with it.
Nice. So let me tell you something. That deer right there walks in front of about 95% of the North Georgia population. It's getting shot.
Oh yeah, 100%.
In some cases, it hit with a truck on purpose. Do you know about our bag limit here in Georgia?
What is it, like a deer a day or something?
I think it's 4 a day. if I'm not mistaken. But no, I'm talking about our total bag limit. You know, if I buy a sportsman's package, do you know, which is $75 for a resident? Are you aware of what all I can kill with that one package?
Probably anything that moves.
10 does, 2 bucks, or 2 turkeys. Fish all the fresh water we want, other than a trout. Got to have a stamp for that. Kill all the hogs we want, which I don't think anybody's ever got a ticket for killing a hog. And then however many bear you can kill in our state, which is, I want to say, if it's not 2, it's 1. So 12 deer, 1 license.
Oh.
And they say we got an antler restriction. That one of them's supposed to be 4 or more on one side. I ain't never heard nobody enforce that crap.
Yeah.
No, not one time.
No, that is something that, again, man, like I said, growing up in Northwest Arkansas, hunting the Ozarks, like people come down to my trophy room and, you know, they're looking like, that's a pretty good deer. That's a pretty good deer. That's pretty good. Why'd you mount that deer? And I'm like, well, that deer actually, like, that deer is more of a trophy to me than any deer in here because, yeah, it's only a 120, but that's a 20 from Arkansas. Like, the rest of these are from Kansas, Missouri, you know, wherever else. I'm like, that's from Arkansas where deer don't grow like that.
Yeah.
And that's another part of social media that I think people need to understand. Like, if I post a picture of a 110, people are going to be like, oh my gosh, why did you kill that? And I'm like, well, dude, it's in South Georgia. Like, that's a giant. Like, and people just, they need to understand. Everybody wants to kill 180.
Oh yeah.
But they're hunting in South Georgia. Like,
yeah.
And I think it's just, we've given off this misconception. We've given off this idea of like, yeah, there's big deer behind every tree. Like, there's not.
Ain't nobody fooled me with that yet. I know there ain't big deer behind every tree. I go out in the woods and I just hope to see 5 deer sometimes. And that's what's crazy is, I mean, you know, they passed the baiting law here 6-7 years ago where the whole state gets to hunt over a pile of corn now if we want to. And we want to, or I do. And now it's just a matter of who's putting out more corn on their property. So like my place got a decent amount of deer, been managing it very strictly. I mean, I've maybe taken 2 does off this place in 6 years. And the only 2 bucks I've ever taken, one had a broke leg and the other one just needed to be shot. He's behind me somewhere. But if I go 5 miles up the road to one of my buddies who has a little bit bigger checkbook than me and has like 19 feeders running, you know, obviously he's got a whole lot more deer. I mean, and that's just 5 miles up the road. I mean, that's what it's turned into around here. Now, I am trying food plots this year. I switched food plot brands and switched over to Domain, which those guys have helped me out tremendously as far as telling me what I need to do, what I need to plant, how I need to do it, when I need to do it. Because I was pretty ignorant to that stuff. Still am, still learning, but all the cool kids are doing this. I gotta give it a shot.
So that's just what I wish people would understand. But if people are going to understand it, we have to portray it better. Like, if you're only hunting on a piece of ground that the biggest deer is a 110, you've got to get the idea of a 180 out of your head. Like, you have to just kill the biggest, oldest, maturest deer on there and work to build this herd up. And that's what, like, you know, people are always quick to say, like with Lee and Tiffany, like, yeah, if I got to hunt where they hunted, I'd kill 180s too. Yeah, but they also have worked their tail off for decades to build the land that they've built that holds those 180s. And if you want to have that, you can have that. Like, you can have that. But what it's going to take is taking 2 things to understand. Like, well, first off, the biggest deer I have here is a 110. So I'm not going to kill 180. But also you have to understand, like, sometimes killing the biggest deer antler-wise is not what's best for the property. And that's something that's really hard to understand for a lot of people. Like, if I've got a 160 that's 2.5 years old, and then I've got a 130 that's 7.5 years old, I need to kill the 130. I need to get that 7.5-year-old off the property in order for that 160 2.5-year-old to be able to breed more. And it's something that people don't get it.
I gotta ask you something. Since you said that, I want to throw a wrench at you, and you tell me because I don't know. So you want to kill that 7-year-old 130, get him off the property because of his genetics, or just because you want to eat him?
Because his age, he's past his prime in breeding. He's taking up. So what he's doing is he's taking resources from deer that the 2.5-year-old is breeding. He's in his prime. He needs more food. He needs more water. He needs more nourishment. The 7.5-year-old's past his breeding, and we're talking Georgia, Arkansas. 7.5 years old is not past breeding in Kansas, in my opinion. Could be wrong, but and again, it's because of the nutritional value that we have. I mean, they've got corn, they've got beans, they've got wheat. I mean, they're surrounded by incredible food sources. But anyways, it's taking up habitat that you want those other deer to be able to grow up in. So you kill the older, more mature does, the older, more mature bucks that are past their breeding. So it gives the younger ones more time to move up. Now, I'm not a believer in killing deer genetically to improve genetics.
Ooh, good answer.
Reason being is because I don't have any idea what antler genetics the does carry. I can't know that. And so if said buck and said doe are breeding, I don't know what kind of antler genetics this doe has. So just because I kill a buck that shows bad antler genetics, I'm not ever going to kill all the does that have the bad antler genetics. And they're still going to be passing that on. So no, I don't believe that we can kill animals based off of antler genetics in order to grow bigger and better deer. What I do believe is that I can kill the bigger, older, more mature deer. And yeah, sometimes that's the gnarly 160s, 170s, 180s, but sometimes it's the goofy 120s that are 7.5 years old. And 2 years ago, they were 140, 150, but they've went downhill. They've digressed. And man, I remember I shot a deer in Oklahoma one year, and this deer was an old warrior of a buck. And he was probably only 115-inch deer, but he didn't have a tooth in his head. I mean, he was so old. He was so past the point of breeding, so past the point of his prime. Didn't have a tooth in his head. And again, like that deer on my wall, people are like, that is such a dinky looking deer. And I'm like, yeah, but that was the oldest, most mature, smartest deer on the property.
Yep.
Like that was the deer I needed to kill. And again, sometimes that's hard because I remember sitting there and I literally had like a 140 3.5-year-old, and then I have this 115 that is obviously way too old. And I'm like, crap, well, I guess I'm going to shoot the smaller one because I need to. Like that's what the property needs. And that's something that a lot of people don't understand. And that's where Lee and Tiffany have gotten these incredible properties. They've put in time, given the deer ample bedding, given the deer ample food, water, and then they've managed the property to help grow those deer bigger and better. And that's where, so people ask me like, well, how many does should I kill? I don't know. I mean, how many does does your property, do you have a 1-to-1 buck and doe ratio? Do you have a 7-to-1 buck and doe ratio? I don't know. You might need to start whacking and stacking a whole lot of does. And
What's
if you
a good buck
do,
to doe ratio in your opinion?
one in Kansas, 1-to-1. I mean, that would be 1-to-1, 1-to-2. I mean, but
One
one
buck
to
to two
two,
does, or two does to one buck?
1 buck to 2 does.
Okay.
Reason being is because, so I don't know how well you're versed in deer biology, but so
I know where the heart and the lungs are. That's about it.
that's all that matters, my friend. So a buck drops fawns, and it drops 2 fawns. Those are from 2 different daddies. They're not twins in the same sack. So a doe can be bred by 2 different bucks in the same year. So therefore, if I have a 1-to-2 buck ratio, then that buck can breed 2-3 does in that year. And all of those does will take. You know, it's not like buck A's already bred that doe, so what buck B is doing is just having fun. No, he's still passing on his genetics because that doe can breed 2 different fawns from 2 different bucks.
So what do you do if you got a 5-to-1 buck to doe ratio?
5 bucks to 1 doe?
Yeah.
I guess you start smacking bucks as fast as you can,
regardless of genetics and age, or what?
I mean, I would still try to kill the oldest, most mature bucks, because most of your does, the NDA says that most of your does are bred by 1.5, 2.5, and 3.5-year-old bucks. So I would still try to kill the oldest ones to give my younger bucks a better breeding opportunity.
Well, one more, and I'm not trying to trick you. I'm actually asking you questions about my property.
Yeah, absolutely.
What if your oldest buck is maybe 3 years old and you have multiple bucks that are 3 years old and younger? And that was something I was going to bring up. You know how hard or how uncommon it is to see a 5, 6, 7-year-old buck in this state?
Because people kill them.
Oh, we kill the hell out of them.
Yeah.
I mean, there's no, he needs another year. It's not, he needs another bullet.
Oh yeah, trust me, dude. Like I grew up hunting. I grew up hunting deer in Stuttgart area, like that southern Arkansas, and we're the same way, dude. The first deer I shot weighed 40 pounds, soaking wet, with milk coming off its lips, like, and everybody in camp was ecstatic. Like that's how I grew up hunting.
Yeah.
And I don't know. I don't know to answer your question. I know the people that can answer the question. But I don't know because I never faced that issue. Because, like I said, I mean, you don't have that problem in Kansas at all. Again, most people are facing the opposite. They got 1 to 5 buck to doe.
I might have, legitimately, I probably have 4 bucks to every doe.
Wow.
All
right,
young.
So guys, here's what I'm going to do. If you have a good answer to this, I want you to email me, or find one of us on TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, message us.
Email me. Linktree's in the bio.
Yeah. Email one of us. But I am going to, I had the NDA on about a year ago now, the National Deer Association, which is wildly one of the most listened to podcasts ever. We talked about the science of deer movement, not only in a year, but throughout its lifespan, and just blew my mind on some stuff, like crazy stuff about how deer move, and really opened my eyes. So I'm going to have the NDA back on, and I'm going to bring old Scotty Hottie back on, and we're going to talk about his property in Georgia, and get these answers.
Be very curious. I mean, I'm just, like I said, I mean, I'll try anything once, twice if I ain't sure about it.
Yeah, absolutely, man. So before we go, I did want to ask you, we talked briefly before we got on, and we were just kind of talking about how Bear, if you look at archery sales in a year, Bear absolutely just owns the mid-level and beginner bows. Like they own that area. Which I will add, I can say this because this will go out after. Yes, it will. I got to make sure. Yes. So last Friday, Bear launched the new Adapt 2.0 with the hunting public, and it's going to be incredible. I haven't got my hands on it yet, but I would highly encourage everybody to jump back to last Friday's episode, and we were joined with the hunting public to talk about the new bow, but they give some incredible features in a budget bow that just blow my mind. But Bear just kind of owns that mid-level and beginner level bow. What's been your favorite for the 24 mid-level bow?
Probably the same bow that's been my favorite for the past 4 years. The Species, now known as the Species EV.
Yeah.
Why? We sell piles of those bows. They give you 15 pounds of variance in the limbs. They're $450. So somebody who wants to go as cheap as possible can still get a good quality bow and build off of that platform. If they want to make it a little bit more accurate, they can put a drop away rest on there. If they want to shoot a little further, they can go to a single or dual pin slider. And that is actually probably the bow lower and mid price range that I've had the least amount of issues with out of any bear archery bow.
Really? So let me just tell you this. So the new Adapt 2. Basically, the best way I can describe this is it's a whitetail max riser, which if you're familiar with that, it's like a caged riser. It's a whitetail max riser, but it has Picatinny sight mounts and IMS rest mounts. But then what blows my mind is the Adapt 2 Plus Ready to Hunt package. And this is what it comes with. And I literally, like, when I got this graphic from Bear, I didn't believe it. What do I
win if I get to guess everything that's on the bow?
I'll have them send you one if you can guess the accessories that come on this bow. Go ahead.
Hot wire sight, propel, integrated rest, 6-inch,
Nope.
whatever their stabilizer is. No,
You're already way off. They upgraded everything.
I'll shut up.
So for $799. Now let me just say this: the bow only is $499. So for $799, you're getting the new Adapt 2. You're getting a Swift Duo sight. You're getting a integrated Whisker Biscuit V. You're getting a Versalite quiver. You're getting the Hitman stabilizer with a quick disconnect. So for $800, you're getting a $500 accessory package and a $500 bow, which is just outrageous. So I think it's going to be a really good bow for bear. Of course, anything that says the hunting public on it has always done good for bear. But hearing the guys, and again, I haven't shot this bow yet, but hearing Aaron and Hayden talk about the bow and what they liked about it, is going to be a banger. Now I still am of the opinion that the Whitetail Max or the Alaskan XT is one of my favorite budget bows. I mean, the Whitetail Max for the reason that you're getting the EKO cam in a budget bow, and then the Alaskan XT for the reason that you're getting IMS rest mounts and Picatinny sight mounts in a budget bow is just outrageous. But I do like the Species EV too, so I can't disagree with you.
We love that bow. I actually got a revise an order coming up to get some in before Christmas, because that's a lot of people's first bow in our area. A lot of people's first bow. Yeah, absolutely.
So before we sign off, where can they find you at, man?
Well, you can find me on TikTok under BowTok, which is where most people find me. I do have a YouTube channel called Bowboy, and same thing on Instagram. It's Bowboy something / I don't know. Just look it up. Maybe you find it, hopefully. But if it worst comes to worst, find my TikTok. It's pretty easy to find, and it's got all my handles and platforms under one link tree. Make it pretty easy.
I can help you because I just found you on Instagram. It's Bowboy_77.
Oh, see? I'm surprised it popped up.
All right, I said we're about to sign off, but we're not. Because I just saw you post a picture of the UV arrows. What's your first thoughts on them?
Cadillac.
Really?
So here's what the UV arrows represent for somebody like me who builds arrows a lot. They represent the fact that I can just cut some arrows and ship them to a customer, or obviously give them to the customer across the counter. And he's paying basically the same amount of money for those as he would for me to fletch arrows and wait 20 days this time of year.
But they're also $220 for 6.
They're also fletched with the correct left helical, which no other pre-fletch manufacturer does that in the world.
Why do you say correct left helical?
Because every string manufacturer, stock and majority of aftermarket string manufacturers, put a left twist and a left wrap around the serving, which forces the arrow off the shelf to swing left and not right. And every pre-fletched manufacturer arrow in the world, or manufacturer arrow that offers pre-fletched, does a right offset. Makes no sense. But it also makes as much sense as almost every quiver manufacturer doing a 5-arrow quiver when all 6-pack pre-fletched arrows come in a 6-pack.
You know, here's my problem with left helical.
Okay.
I'm not going to count, but I think I have probably 8 or 9 dozen right bevel broadheads, and I'm like, well, I don't want. Again, I'm in that place where I'm like, I want to shoot left helical, and I have a dozen fletched up because I have one set of left bevel broadheads. But I don't want to order a whole bunch of new broadheads in a left bevel so that I can shoot left helical.
Then order you a set of Rogue bowstrings because they do a right twist.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
Huh.
Them, and don't quote. I don't even want to say the other string manufacturer's name because I'm not 100% sure if it's them or not, but I know that Rogue does do a right twist.
All right, so let's get down to the nitty-gritty. Do you think... Now, I understand that a string that is left twisted is going to naturally push that arrow off with a slight left spin to it.
Mm-hmm.
So do you think that it makes that much of a difference to shoot right helical with a string that's twisted left?
Depends on the skill level of the shooter and what kind of groupings they're wanting at long distance.
Okay, so let's take average 90% of American bow hunters, max distance 60 yards.
They won't see the difference majority of the time.
100%.
That's why when they come to a custom arrow builder, they're looking not just for flashy colors, they're looking for that extra performance that they're going to see a difference in when they're shooting 100 yards plus.
Yeah. And that's what I tell people, because people will call me and be like, all right, so I tested my arrows and they're coming off the bow left. So do I need to put a left helical on them? I'm like, okay, Levi Morgan can tell the difference. I cannot. Like, Levi can shoot the difference. I cannot. Like, even past 100, I'm not a good enough shot to notice that difference. Because again, when we're talking coming off the string left, we're talking like a quarter of a turn, not even a quarter. We're talking a 16th of a turn before those helicals take over. So yes, it will stabilize your arrow faster and more effectively. I can't shoot the difference, and 90% of Americans can't shoot the difference. John Dudley, Levi Morgan, we can keep naming a few, but I mean, Nathan Brooks, I mean, they can shoot the difference. I'm never going to notice it. You're probably never going to notice it. So that's where I stand on that.
Well, as long as the people keep paying me for that performance, I'm going to keep doing it, because there are a lot of people, especially total archery challenge shooters, when these guys are shooting 130 yards, you'd be surprised. You would be surprised.
Now, I will say this. So to retract a little bit, not a ton, because I get questions on those little variables a lot, like, little things that are going to be little bitty. And Fred Eichler was one of my biggest kind of mentors when I started switching to traditional archery. And he said it best. He said, Dylan, if 10 different things make a 1 to 2% difference, and I choose to ignore all of them, well, at the end of the day, that's a 10 to 20% difference in my shooting.
Mm-hmm.
So I have to pay attention to most of the little things, because those little things, if not paid attention to, will add up. 1 to 2% different here, 1 to 2% different here, 1 to 2% different here. All of a sudden, you're 17% worse than you could be just by taking a couple extra steps. So to retract a little bit, I focus on a lot of little things that some people think it's never going to make a difference. And string to helical twist isn't one of those that I focus on.
A lot of people don't.
Yeah. And you're right. Because again, it's one thing that, might make a 1 to 2% difference. And so if you're shooting a setup where, there's a bunch of little things that make a 1 to 2% difference, and you haven't taken care of any of them, well then, you're shooting a 17% difference bow. So again, to retract a little bit, I mean, it will make a difference.
But here's the whole ordeal, and why people dive into this never-ending rabbit hole, as I call it, is because they're looking for every little advantage they can get. And some of it's, and I'll be honest with you, even though it legitimately, like you said, may make a 2 to 3% difference or whatever, a lot of it's mental. If somebody
100%.
makes that difference, they're thinking, this is going to make me a better shooter. And it very well may, because you got it in your head now. I mean, I don't remember who said it, but, archery's 90, 95%, mental, and the rest of it's physical. And, which arguable, but yes.
Yeah.
But by making those slight differences, you're helping your mental game, because now you've taken out that wondering if I should have done this, or spent the extra money, or spent the extra time to fletch it the correct way. Now you've eliminated all of that, and you know for a fact that it's right. So now you have more confidence going into your shot. And when you have a confident shooter behind the bow, you're absolutely unbeatable.
Yeah.
Absolutely unbeatable.
And there's a lot to be said about that. The best bow that you could ever shoot is the one you're confident in. Best arrow you could ever shoot is the one you're confident in. Listen, I absolutely love, and I don't know if you've ever played with them, but I love deer crossing archery arrows. They're not pretty by any means. They don't make fancy, pretty arrows, but to me, they make consistent arrows that I can shoot well, and I don't have to spend a whole bunch of money on. Well, I should say this. I don't have to spend a whole bunch of money on the shafts, which allows me to upgrade to ethics outserts and to the nocks I want, and then fletch them and build them how I want without being, $400 into a dozen arrows. So I love those. I'm confident in those arrows. And so do a lot of other people make really good arrows? Yes. Does UV make good arrows? I'm sure. I haven't played with them yet, but I've never seen anything they make bad. So I'm sure they're going to make good arrows. And if spending $220 on a 6-pack is going to give you an extreme amount of confidence, then spend $220 on a 6-pack.
Yep, absolutely. And you'd be amazed at how many of those 6-packs we've already sold right now, and it's only been dropped for 4 days. Yeah, dropped on the 1st.
That's the first comment I made. Texting him to a buddy right when I saw him, and I said $220 for a 6-pack, and I said, but people are going to buy them.
Well, it's the same price as
Pro Tours,
6 Easton FMJs, or even 6 Easton Axis hand wrapped and fleshed, depending on what shop you go to.
Yeah, that's true.
I mean, and that's why I said it gives me as a shop the option. If somebody wants everything done kind of the way I've done it, I probably wouldn't have gone that route with that wrap. The wrap looks cool, but I don't want to have to put one back on.
Yeah.
But it just gives me that option. Like, hey, here you go. It's ready to go. Hope you like white because that's the only color it comes in.
Yeah, I was a little worried about that wrap. Because again, you're not going to be able to replicate it.
Well, so I don't think anybody's talked about this, especially on a podcast. So before they launched, about 2 or 3 days before launch day, Colby had a Skype meeting with all his dealers, which I thought was really cool. I haven't seen another CEO of a company do that before launch on a product. And he to my knowledge, he's never done that before. He didn't do that with the UV sliders or anything like that. So I made sure I tuned in, and he was going through all the specs and this, that, and the other. And he did say that there was wrap kits and fletchings available. And like you said, I don't know how it's going to work. The only thing I can, shooting from the hip, picture in my mind is if they have an arrow building mat that goes on your counter with a stencil of that wrap and a stencil of the arrow, and you line everything up perfectly and roll that.
And they very well might.
That I don't know how else you could do it, because it's an uneven wrap and it's away from the end of the arrow shaft.
Yeah.
So I'd be curious. I mean, I already told my customer, I said, if y'all want these rewrapped, I'm just going to do it the way I want to. I said, I'm not doing this. I said, sorry, I'll put white back on there, but it ain't going to be the same white wrap. Ain't going to be the same fletchings either.
Yeah. Well, Scotty, man, I appreciate your time, and I appreciate the information that you give out on social media. I tell everybody that ask me, just be careful about digesting information on social media, because some of it's garbage, some of it's really good. So consider the source is what I tell people. And I appreciate that you put out good, solid information on social media for people to grow and become better archers with. So keep doing what you're doing, man.
I appreciate that, brother. I appreciate you having me on, and glad you could squeeze me in such a short notice. That worked out really good, and hope to do it again with you sometime.
Absolutely. We're going to have the NDA on real soon and talk about your property and help you grow bigger and better deer, and everybody else. I mean, if you're in the South, you might be facing the same problem. So stay tuned, and we're going to make sure that happens so that you guys down South don't just have to listen to Midwesterners talk about how to grow bigger deer.
Sounds like a plan, homie.
Guys, I'm not a gun guy. You're listening to the Bear Archery Podcast. I'm a bow hunter. I enjoy archery. However, guns are a necessity for outdoorsmen. I need an everyday carry pistol. I need a shotgun to shoot birds with. I need a truck gun. I need a gun to shoot coyotes with. I need a lightweight gun to pack in the mountains if I'm on a bear hunt and need backup. There are times where I need a gun. And I am the type of guy, like I said, I don't study guns. I don't know a lot about guns. So when I'm in need of a gun, I just call somebody. My favorite place on earth has become Powder and String Outfitters in Wellington, Kansas. I love the creaky old floor, the rustic decor, the fact that they just take you back to a time where Main Street shops were experts in their trade. It's one of the best feelings walking into that place, because you feel like you're walking back in time. Powder and String Outfitters has just launched an online website where you can shop the largest selection of in-stock guns and ammo that you will find anywhere, and the best prices guaranteed. Powder and String powderandstring.com. Guys, here's my favorite part. Call them. Ask them questions. Ask them, tell them what you're looking for in a gun, what you want to get out of it, what you want to use it for, and they're going to point you in the right direction. How do I know that? Because I have to do that every time I need a new gun. So guys, go to powderandstring.com for your next gun, for your ammo, for your clips, for all of your hunting accessories, trail cameras, tree stands. They've got it all. They've got archery equipment too, but they are my gun experts that I trust, that I go to all of the time when I've got questions about guns. Powderandstring.com. Go check them out. You can shop online. You can figure it all out. The guns will ship straight to your house. It's an incredibly easy process to go through. Guys, they've got everything you could ever need. Powderandstring.com. All right, gentlemen, thank you so much. Y'all have a fantastic week. Thank you for listening.